There's no doubt about the ability of AI to improve an individual's efficiency.
Really did the research, it spearheaded the project, and I'm going to say like maybe 2 years ago.
17 of them have automations involved.
One of the things that we've talked about on the show is how much AI can help onboarding.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is October 1st, 2024, and you're watching the Daily AI Show live. And today, we're here to talk about whether AI can truly boost efficiency. Do we have any evidence of that? Is it have more to do with adoption at this point? You know, what's really going on is AI really going to have the impact as far as efficiencies and productivity when it comes to business that we are all hoping it does? Or is it missing the mark a little bit? So with me today is Andy. I'm Brian, and I think we'll have a few more people pop in the door here in a second, but to kick things off, it's me and Andy. So I don't know. Let me see who I'm going to pass this off to. I don't know. Hey, Andy. Why don't you kick this conversation off for us?
Sure. So I think there's no doubt about the ability of AI to improve an individual's efficiency by accelerating, the generation of content, providing high-level summaries and advancing their knowledge about things by digesting a large corpus of information and data in the corporate context and presenting it back in a digestible form. I think that speeds things up. It reduces slack in the efficiency process. But the bigger question is, can human organizations, which require a lot of orchestration and integration of multiple parties and systems, can those be enhanced by AI? And I think the indication is that, the tools that are already being used to do that, and those are typically project management tools like Asana and Trello that help manage the process of, initiation and then collaboration and then completion of a project to an outcome. Those project management tools will benefit by adding AI features into them, like an AI co-pilot to help with that orchestration and the communication of that. So I have experience and therefore a preference for Asana, which started out really just as a project management framework for the project manager. But then because it has, it developed over time, the internal communications and sort of the presence of all of the players in the project in the Asana workspace. It's integrated with email and Slack and everything else as well. But when you have a central place that everybody's turning to organize and update themselves and then update others on the project, and you have task assignment and task completion, and then you have displays that can show where you are in the progression of all of the sort of Gantt chart, dependencies and progress through those processes. All of that helps with efficiency, but one of the biggest obstacles to real orchestration of the full team was getting everybody to actually use Asana in that way. The project manager might be using Asana to do that as the owner of that project management tool, but it was very difficult, even as recently as 4 or 5 years ago, to get senior managers who were responsible for the initiation and conduct of projects, but not at the detail level, at the level of deciding what the overall scope and cost or budget, if you will, and objectives of that project, when it would be assigned to it. It's very difficult to get those people to get out of email to start that process and instead use Asana. So I think that I haven't used Asana's AI features, but what Asana's AI features are providing is another layer of abstraction on the detail of a complex project that's built into Asana by project managers, so that a senior executive can ask an AI co-pilot, what's the status of this project? The AI can, encompass all of the different elements of that project, everything that's been added to that project and where it is in its progression, and report back on that, identifying places where there are, issues to be resolved and so on. And Asana, I looked at Asana's website to see what they have as their current AI feature set. And, what they list there, as available today is status updates on projects, as I just described. That's a nice feature. Previously, the executive managing that project, or who has the overall responsibility for that project at the department level, would need to turn to a project manager and say, hey, what's going on? I don't really spend my day in Asana. Well, where do we stand on this project? Where is it likely to come out? And what are the risks that we're facing here? Now AI can deliver that smart status report pretty directly. So it takes a burden off the project manager. It helps you draft more effective goals. Sounds like, okay, that's a little bit of a bonus, but it's not going to change the nature of project management. Smart charts, it will come soon to visualize data. Okay, I'm still not quite impressed. Already available smart summaries, get a quick summary of the latest progress to keep up to date. Same thing as before. Now available smart rules. You can make a rule, and the example that they give is when a new high priority task is created, notify me in Microsoft Teams or Slack or by email. Let me know. Okay, well, all of those things are great. What's going to come, though, coming soon, is AI teammates in Asana. Okay, and that's taking the concept of agents, agents that can actually generate and assign tasks as a teammate and communicate about it. That's not yet available, but it's on their roadmap. I can see the combination of those enhanced features making Asana overall as a project management tool that's orchestrating the efficient production of objectives by a human organization. I can see those things converging together to make something that's much more efficient. And there's some evidence by some studies that have been done very recently in this year by organizations using AI-driven project management tools like this that at least purport to have very significant increases in project completion rates, quality of completion, and so on. So I think that there is efficiency gains to be had there. But I'm a little questioning the what is the current state? If I jumped into the Asana at Life Aid Beverage Company today, would it really be transforming the efficiency of the orchestration of humans?
Let me talk on that, because we use Asana at Scaled. So that is our project management tool. And that was after many rough years using a different tool that, how it goes with any business, you sort of use it and then it gets hard to get out of, right? Because there's data in there. And so it has to be this huge change agent to do that. And we did eventually have one of our VPs who really did the research, spearheaded the project. And I'm going to say maybe 2 years ago, we moved over to Asana after looking at Monday and other tools that are project management tools like it. But the reason I wanted, as you were talking, the main thing that was coming up to me, and you sort of ended on this point, is adoption, and so that, to me, when it comes to this larger conversation, because you've been talking about a project management tool, which by definition should be a tool for greater AI efficiency and productivity, which is the discussion today on the show. But it really does come down to adoption. And you were just talking about some different research papers. I was going to pull up one from a different place, but let me start with this one instead. And this is from Goldman Sachs. So this is just from May of 2024. So this is from just a few months ago. And what I wanted to go and sort of point out right away, and we can get into this report a little bit more, is there was a question based on what you're seeing from the data. How are we tracking against your productivity prediction? The answer here is we haven't seen much of an impact on productivity growth so far, But the reason being is even though we still see a lot of potential for AI to automate a lot of things that workers do on a day-to-day basis, thereby saving a lot of time and generate large productivity gains, the adoption rates are just fairly limited right now. And there's more in this. This is actually a really cool Goldman Sachs study and a blog, so we'll come back to that. But I wanted to highlight just that point. By the way, we have Beth and Karl with us now too, so it's not just me and Andy. If you're listening along, if you're watching, you saw as they came in. But so we have the four of us here. But that's something I want to talk about is the adoption. Because Andy, look, Asana could come out with a perfect tool, a perfect AI solution. A could come out with the very first AI agents, that's maybe more than an automation, because you were sort of mentioning a solution that, is an automation. Notify me when X happens. Well, that's an if this, then that. We've seen these. They're not per se AI, although there might be some embedded in there. What I believe is really going to come down to is kind of what Goldman Sachs saying is, and by the way, in there, they also say that we think we'll really sort of see it impact U.S. numbers and dollar figures in 2027. So why is that? Why are we in late 2024 and we're saying, well, we might have to wait 2 to 3 years before we truly see the AI, the productivity and efficiency impacts of AI? I do think it just basically comes back to adoption. It's not that people don't necessarily want to use a tool, or maybe they don't want to implement the AI on Asana, but at least in my experiences in work and maybe how it was at Fitted, it takes that person, that team, that top-down push to make sure that the change actually goes through, because people are going about their days and just using Asana the way they normally would, or whatever tool it is that now has AI. It could be Slack or Teams or just Gmail for that matter. There's these new AI pieces and parts to it that absolutely can impact efficiency, whether you're using a Gmail summary tool for your emails. Well, who is or who isn't using that? Or custom GPTs like I build for people in sales. Great. The team comes through. We've had people come through and say, I'm going to buy 10 of them, Brian. Fantastic. Great from my side. What does your adoption plan look like? It's like, well, I think everybody's kind of using it. And what you're going to find is if we don't step in and try to help with that, there's not really going to be an adoption. So the solutions for efficiency are there, but they're not being put into practice and then followed up on. And that to me is why there's going to be such a delay in seeing greater efficiencies beyond, like, in my case, the individual sales rep who is now personally using the custom GPTs that we built and are giving us testimonials and saying, hey, this saves me 45 minutes every time I do brand new prospect. Now it takes me 3 and it used to take me 45. Well, we can all agree that if we plotted lots of these people on a graph, that is absolutely efficiency and productivity. I mean, there's no doubt about it. 45 minutes down to 3 for a repeatable task is amazing. But we're talking about individuals. We're not talking about all teams. We're not talking about whole teams or whole organization. So let me pause there. Beth, Karl, you guys are coming into the conversation as well. What is sort of your take on it? Do you kind of agree with what Goldman Sachs is saying? Do you have a different take on it?
So I think in the Goldman Sachs report that you showed, it said eventually, right? Where it said, if you go back up
to where I had the quote.
Yeah.
Let me find it really quick. Right in here is what I was quoting. So,
right. No. Go all the way up.
Just fairly limited right now is what they said.
What is the headline of the piece?
It is AI is showing very positive, in quotes, signs of eventually boosting GDP.
So eventually is doing a lot of work in that sentence, right? In that heading. And part of what we're talking about is that the vision of AI being able to enhance efficiency boosts is when it's able to enhance it without needing to change human behavior, right? ChatGPT changed the way that people experience AI because it was a chat interface that was very similar to texting, right? Or searching, like the really basic ways humans did not actually really need to change their behavior in order to start getting some value from it. Then we learned how to use it better, and there were changes that happened after that. Right now, where we are is it has the potential to boost efficiency, but it doesn't right now have an ability to make it really easy. And part of that is also the conflation between using AI and automating something, right? They are not the same, and automations need to be put together by humans. AI can plan it, and humans can put together the automation. And then there's some automation, maybe with some logic, maybe with some AI making some decisions, categorizing the type of request or response or those sorts of things. But so I think we're in this funky place. Can AI actually boost efficiency? Yes. Is it beyond the hype? Is it boosting efficiency right now? Not so much. Or it takes a special kind of organization. So the actual answer to the question is, well, it depends. Karl, what are you seeing or thinking?
I just want to give feedback from, we have about 20, 22, 23 clients that we work with. I would say 17 of them have automations involved, some sort of automation involved with it, including some sort of digital assistant. But I think there's a couple pieces here too. And what we've seen is, yes, all these different type of automations. Well, I guess first of all, AI to us, what we've seen from just visiting, talking, doing discovery, chatting with so many people and businesses, AI use is very individual, personalized, because the way that one person wants to use it or has thought, their perception of using it and what makes it easy for them is very different than another person. And that crosses teams, that crosses industries too. And then on top of that is, even though things could be faster, I think there's a innate human nature that my way is faster, even though you show me something that's going to be faster than my way. And it just is. I've seen it too many times, even outside of AI. Now, the thing that we've noticed is, how can you do these, make productivity gains in the tools that they're using already, right? So if they're in Teams, could you make so that whatever you're doing in Teams or in Slack or in Docs or in Word, it can't, to ask people to go to another tool makes it exponentially harder because people are busy. People have their workflows, and you're introducing, like you said, something new. So that's part one. Part two is, do you see, Andy, when you were talking about Asana and same with Brian, and then you think about every single SaaS tool has added AI things to their platforms. I was just thinking about Zap Connect last week, and they're going over all these things. Well, who is going to learn so if your company has Asana, has Salesforce, has HubSpot, has Gong, who is able to learn all these tools and use them? Because it's not as much as a company say, oh, it's plug and play. I'm like, yeah, it's plug and play, but you still have to learn how to use those things. You have to know Gong's AI component, even though it is kind of a chatbot. There's one chat feature to it. You still have to learn Asana's feature. You still have to learn Salesforce's feature. And then how do you the big question always, regardless of AI or not, how do you tie all these things together to make it work for your company? Not for anybody else's, not even your company, your specific use, your team specific use or your use. Yeah, that's great. We have AI for everything. It's but how is it going to make my personal work easier? And I think that's why when I hear about Agentforce, Salesforce Agent, Microsoft Copilot Agent, and all the other agents coming, that's very difficult for companies because these things are moving too fast for them to adjust to. But now you have something on top of all the other tech tools. And just like simple Excel, how many people actually use all the features in Excel? Not very many people. People would use a couple here and there. They'd have to Google or perplexity, or what is it called? Plex.
They plex it. They plex it, Karl.
They plex it now. So, but that's the thing. It's like, well, for my specific use case, I don't need any of these other things, but just this. So now you've added AI component to it, even though it's supposed to make it easier, but it's just an added thing that you have to learn. So I think it's all disjointed, and you're having even more disjointed because everyone's so excited and all these SaaS companies are adding.
I want to bring in another layer of this too, is like workers are obviously thinking to themselves, okay, great, there's some top-down push on this. Who's this actually going to impact? Is it going to impact me and my job? And in which way? Because if I'm a worker and I'm being shown these new AI tools, I might be thinking to myself, well, that is going to make me more efficient. I'm now going to be able to do the same amount of work in a given 40-hour week, but now I can do it in 32, hypothetically, right? I'm not saying all AI acts evenly across the board. That's absolutely not the truth. But in some industries, that is very real. I would say in sales, actually, that is a very real number, right? What I could do in 40, I can now do in 32. But are you going to work 32 hours? Of course not. Most likely not. I'm not saying all businesses are like that. I have definitely dealt with businesses who are like, listen, we pay you for this, and so we don't really care how fast or slow. That's really your thing. You know, like it's not about 40 hours, which is, to me, the right way to look about it. But regardless. So you got these workers and they're saying like, sure, I could be more efficient, but does that mean that because I'm more efficient that there's an increase in pay for me being more efficient because I'm now producing more results based on these tools? Or is it just the organization that's going to see these gains? And although I am producing more, nothing really trickles down to me. Where's my motivation to adopt something that's an increased efficiency? I mean, some people are going to do it because they simply want to work smarter, faster, doing the same amount of work. I'm kind of that person. I've always said efficiency is my favorite word in the English language. That is without a doubt. I park closer, not because to a storefront, not because I'm lazy, because it's efficient. It gives me joy to be in that closer parking spot. I'm like, it's efficient. It's rock star parking. I love it. I don't mind walking. I just love the efficiency of it. And I think a lot of people are that way. So I will naturally move towards anything that I think is going to make me more efficient. And I enjoy that for me. But there's tons of people who are thinking, how is this going to impact my long-term job? How is this going to impact what I do? Am I moving at a higher level of efficiency, not because it's great for me as the worker and for the company, or because the company is moving to a higher levels of efficiency so that when they do that, knock that 8 hours off, they just multiply that together and get rid of one position? Is that me? Am I low man on totem pole? Am I the one going out the door by being more efficient today? Am I effectively working myself out of a job? I think these are very, very real concerns, and definitely go back towards the adoption rate of, sure, I can use these AI tools. You want me to get better at Asana? You want me to be able to do all this project management stuff and whiz bang and everything else? But who is that really helping? Am I getting anything out of this? Or do I have to just be okay with the fact that, rising tides raise all boats, but maybe not mine? I may not be part of that solution. I don't know. I just think it's a big, big part of this whole discussion of efficiency is, do I even want the efficiency for my job?
That's an interesting barrier to adoption. And it's a psychological one to a large degree, a question of personal motivation. And personal productivity tools, I think, are something that some people adopt and some people don't. As some people just try to get by doing whatever is the minimum requirement of what they're producing. But I want to shift it back up to the organizational level and the perspective of the CEO and or the president and anyone who's trying to figure out the fundamental questions about resource allocation and assignments and adoption of new initiatives that will create more load on the organization against a pretty substantial load of already in-process projects. So adoption is key to that as well. So for example, if I could militate that no one ever accepts or receives an assignment except through Asana, and nobody creates any tasks for anybody except through Asana, so that all of those things are contained in that one system. And then Asana has every single person have a profile as they do that shows, what their skills are and what their, availability is. And there's an actual record for that for each individual user in Asana for all the tasks that they currently have as recurring tasks and all the tasks that have been assigned to them and all the projects they're involved in. Then imagine a future, it's kind of utopian, where we're sitting there at the strategic planning level in the executive suite, and we decide that we really want to do a product innovation tiger team, and we want to launch that now because we really feel that it's important for us to come out with a new product that is going to meet this particular notional demand. How do we manage that whole thing? Well, in the future, it's possible to first ask the question, do we have the human resources, availability in our system to take on that project? And even if it's going to impose on other projects, which ones will get imposed upon, given that these are the people who are going to end up being assigned by the AI assistant in Asana when I say we're launching this innovation project? That's really helpful in terms of strategic planning, but it's a utopian vision because today we don't have the adoption across the board that every single thing goes through Asana. I don't know that there's any company that's achieved that yet. Maybe there are. Maybe there are major enterprises that use Asana that really do motivate everybody in the company to work in that platform. But a lot of the work kind of devolves over to Slack. Tasks, ad hoc assignments happen in another communication system outside the project management system. So there's not a clear view of what everybody's doing. So anyway, I just wanted to add that perspective because I think there's something hopeful about overall orchestration of an organization in the strategic planning context, but I don't think it's there because of adoption issues.
So I think you're making really good points, Andy. One of the things that we've talked about on the show is how much AI can help onboarding, right? Each individual employee could conceivably have a personal coach, AI coach, right? That talks about the resources, knows the strategy, the workflows, those sorts of things, and can help bring that on. What you're talking about is a similar kind of need, but it's organization wide. And one of the reasons that I think this is an important point to bring up is that we see companies making decisions about AI from a fear. I still don't understand it. I still don't understand what it's going to do, but we have to do something because we're being left behind. And actually spending the time, if that's how you feel, spending the time to create the strategies, to work with a consultant or someone who's going to be able to help you pinpoint, like, this is a great place to start. And this is what we think you'll see as a result of implementing here. Right. And then listening to your employees about where they see those opportunities. And a little reassurance goes a long way, Brian, right? Like it's human nature. If you ask your employees without talking about the larger context of jobs within a company where AI is a significant player, and you ask them like, hey, where do you think your job could use AI to be more efficient? It is important to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Even if you just say, honestly, we don't know yet, right? It is our intention to whatever. But without addressing the elephant, you're giving employees an incentive to try to figure out the answer that you want to hear and then shade it in a way that feels better to them. Right.
Look, every business has to decide for themselves whether this is something they want to tackle internally or they want to bring in consultants to help with. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong to that. There's plenty of reasons why you might take this on internally. If you do, I'll tell you exactly. I mean, I don't know, I want to speak for everybody here, but I'll tell you exactly how we would approach this. And these aren't secrets. It's that, at least from the scale, but also what we do at Daily AI Show when we talk to clients through our LLC, Daily AI Strategies, it really starts with uncovering and asking questions. And I will give you sort of some behind the scenes stuff as far as scale. we used to refer to it as an AI maturity assessment. But the reality is, calling it AI actually does more harm than good. And here, this is somebody who's part of a show that we started about AI. But it's not that it's a dirty word. It's just that it doesn't really mean anything necessarily. Great. AI is the big word of the day. AI maturity assessment. What is that? So we refer to it as a productivity assessment. Because the reality is AI is a tool in many, many different ways, right? Many tools. It's not just one. There's a lot of ways, from language models to other predictive ways and more on the machine learning side of things. So when we have conversations with people, it's really about like, well, where are you today and how do you do these processes? How do you go about this XYZ in marketing or sales or whatever part we're talking about? It's really digging into those questions and getting a good understanding of how things are done today so that you have some sort of benchmark. Otherwise, how can you really say that AI helped in any given way? Take Asana, right? How do you currently use Asana today? How are projects stood up in there? Is there a process for that? Is there a template for that? How do you create an SOW out of there? Is there a process for that, right? So it's uncomfortable a lot of times to ask these questions because typically businesses don't want to admit that it's messy. But the reality is it's messy for everybody. It's messy for everybody. I haven't talked to a business yet in the last 6 years of doing consulting. Have I talked to a business that had it all figured out? They weren't messy at all. They're like, Brian, I don't even know where you would help. I mean, we're so efficient and locked in with how we do stuff. Ask me any question. I'll tell you exactly what the process is. That's not the way business works. Things get messy. People come and go. People who had all the knowledge leave. And they go, oh, we should have asked them how they did that thing.
I'm glad you said that because I want to touch on this point, which is one
knowledge leaving.
About people like turnover.
Yeah.
Turnover is one of the biggest problems with respect to efficiency. Like, how do you maintain efficiency when a bunch of corporate knowledge just went off to another job?
Yeah.
And they were a kingpin in this particular process flow. Okay, so they gave us 3 days of transition, passing on information, and the people who were getting the information passed on to them had other jobs and they had to be responsible for. And it's going to take us 3 months to replace that person. And by the way, in the old days, it was assumed that even a senior executive coming into a new position would not be productive for 6 months. It would take them 6 months to onboard.
That's amazing.
So
man.
there's actually, I think, with an encompassing AI that understands all of the systems, integrated with all the systems, as Asana promises to be, like it's integrated with Slack, so it's seeing all the Slack messages, and you get a full set of adopters sufficient that you've got a pretty comprehensive view of everything that's going on in the company. Then you get what Asana promises in the future, which is smart onboarding. I bring in a new person. They can get a briefing from the AI in Asana about any part of the company, but most importantly, the parts that they're now responsible for. They can get very, very good LLM-driven evaluations and conversations about individuals in the organization, what they're doing, what their perceived efficiency is, all kinds of information delivered to you immediately. And then you just slot right in. You're being assigned tasks. You're assigning tasks with the assistance of AI, and onboarding, instead of being 6 months, is 1 month.
Yeah.
Right.
Listen, that's a huge thing. We semi-joked about this. Maybe I should stop joking about it, just do it. But there could be a whole business that's only niche job in AI is to make onboarding more efficient. Right, Andy? Like, you could literally go into businesses and say, they're like, well, what do you do with AI? Here's what we do with AI. We know your onboarding is crazy inefficient. We don't even have to ask questions. Like, who's the last kingpin that left with a lot of the knowledge and people were scrambling after that? Like, what happens if the next one leaves? All those questions and digging into it, then finding out what people do with that job and what their roles and titles and job responsibilities are, then creating a RAG system and creating a knowledge, gateway for people to onboard faster. Look, Jake Dunlap, who's the CEO of Scaled, has said this several times. He's certainly the expert. I work for sales consulting, but I'm not a sales expert. Jake is a sales expert, been doing it his whole career. And one thing he has said for sure is that AI will take a typical onboarding of a sales rep from 90 days down to less than 30. And we're already seeing it. if you have the right company with the right, thought process, and they have the right support from top down, there's a lot of variables. But when you see it, we're watching companies onboard people, and that's in a role that has a bit of turnover to it. But it's also, here's the crazy thing, Andy, and to everybody else, it's also helping reps stay on longer because it's catching them before they even have day one. And what happens a lot of times is like, we'd really love you. You know this, Andy. I mean, I'm sure you, at your level, you hired several people into the company or were part of maybe that hiring process, right? You were in an interview or something, or you reviewed the resume, whatever. So many times it's, we would love you to have part of our team. Let me tell you about our team culture, blah, blah, blah. And then there's like this weird 2-week gap between great and you accept and when you start. And that's all time that could be used with AI efficiency to really bring somebody into the culture, make them feel like they made the best decision about joining your company. It's about them and what they're going to get out of it. Those 2 weeks we know could have a massive impact on somebody staying 6 years. This is not, rocket science. It's just something that has been very difficult to do. Somebody in human resources has to manually work through that process and be responsible for it. And AI is absolutely going to make this more efficient and more hands-off. But even better than that, a much better experience for the new hire, a much better experience for them, because it could be personalized among many, many other things we've talked about, right, Beth?
Yeah. And what we're talking about right now is in individual jobs where there is likely someone in the company who is an expert at doing the job and can then create the framework around what the new hire needs. What is challenging, and actually Karl mentioned this, is that there's likely no one in the organization that is an expert in all the jobs, right? Or all the tech stack. Karl listed 5, I think, tech stack, and like who in the company is going to be the knowledge person who's going to help integrate those. And the irony of that is that AI is the person in the company who is actually going to be able to take like all of those documentations and identify the places where they can be implemented. But that is likely also a trained position to be able to prompt AI to be able to do that and then implement what AI is recommending. Like, this is now where we're slightly moving into O1 preview territory, right? So that it is a planning and a reasoning kind of thing, but we're very likely not quite there yet. But it's pointing to both an AI function that isn't available yet, is close but not quite available yet, and also positions that aren't there yet. Although it's very likely someone, I think most of us, maybe not Andy, but most of us have been in some sort of technical role. The person probably does still exist. They're just going to have to reinvent themselves very, very quickly when all that lines up. And they're going to be tasked with doing that. Karl, I think that was actually what you did at your old company, right?
It was, but that reminds me, so you have like positions like marketing operations, right? So that's specifically for marketing, HubSpot automation. Then you have Salesforce experts, right? Like certain people in bigger organizations have Salesforce, you have HubSpot people. But then what happens is if you have Asana, you have and we're talking a little bit beyond, like more medium, more enterprise level, where they have multiple of these tools, right? So they have all these tools, and it usually starts falling into 4, 5, 6 different people, or it falls into IT who has to roll it out. Now, what I've seen is IT's been pushed back. It's like, hey, for you to buy this tool, you actually have to have the resources to implement said tool. This doesn't make any sense for us buying it and you're using one feature because somebody who left the company 6 months ago recommended it, and we went through this RFP process and whatever process you did, and we got it. So I think that's a big piece of it, because it's like, and you don't have experts unless obviously like you hire people like us, but who in the company or can they find that's like knowledgeable about all? Let me give you an example. So one of 0 to 60's clients just said, we love what you do building digital assistants. I'm like, cool, we'll pay you this amount. Awesome. But I want you to do it in HubSpot Breeze. We're like, what? It's like, but that was just released last week. It's like, but we love HubSpot. We love HubSpot Breeze. You're like, no one knows how to use HubSpot Breeze. Like, I have like 5 web pages that I have to read through to learn HubSpot Breeze. But the thing is, I think we all know, and hey, how is their RAG implemented? What are the custom instructions? Can I switch models? How does it what kind of questions does your company get? Because this might not work for you. Like, all those questions started feeding in, and it's just, no, but we love HubSpot because we paid for the enterprise. We paid for service. So you need to build whatever you talked about in this. And we're like, we'll try to make it happen, but okay, we'll try, right? So, but that also leads me to, and I think with all the proliferation of all these tools, I'd love a study. A lot of studies are like, hey, what's the adoption? That's cool. But 2-3 months later, how many people are actually using this said tool or this said feature, right? Because what we've seen is about 50% of our clients, we check back because they're still paying us maintenance. They're like, well, only about 20% of our team is using it. I'm like, why? We set all these. Well, they forgot how to use it. Like, what? You're like, but it's so easy because you do this. It's like, yeah, but we forgot how to do just that. It becomes so easy. Or, oh, right, we forgot that we had that. We just kept doing it. It's like, what? You literally spent whatever much money you spent paying us to build you this, but you forgot to use it. So it's all these little tiny things, and it just comes with it because it's just so brand new to everybody. I think that's the thing is, what are some strategies, and we're trying to figure this out too, to get people to continue using, even if the company bought ChatGPT for enterprise, everybody has access. How do you get people to continue using it? Because it's so easy for all of us to just fall right back. Maybe not us, but just everyday employees who have so many things on their minds. Just, you know what? I could go into ChatGPT, or I could do it my way. Yeah, I might be spending an extra hour. All those things you talked about, Brian, floods into my head. Be like, well, I'll just do it my way because I know how to do it. I've been doing it a long time. This ChatGPT thing, yeah, it kind of gives me the right answer, but it's a whole new process. Even though it takes me less, it's just a whole new process.
It's a different way of thinking about it, and we saw that with O1 Preview too. It's natural, right? It's natural language processing, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't require a shift in how you actually think about prompting and stuff like that. And we saw this with SEO, although nobody really thought about, like, how did everybody learn how to Google? Well, I don't remember a definitive time where everybody sat down and learned how to Google search, but it naturally happened over time. You had your early adopters and people who were using things prior to Google, like an Ask Jeeves or whatever, and they were learning how to ask questions that gave them back answers that were really helpful for them. We know that now as SEO, but that wasn't a thing. That SEO was labeled after the case, right? So it was, everybody sort of learned how to do it, and now it's just sort of naturally embedded into the way we think about looking for answers. But now there's new tools like Perplexity and others in ChatGPT who are now causing us to have to sort of relearn, in some cases unlearn past ways of doing things because they no longer apply. Where we had to think in certain words and phrases, we no longer have to do that because the models are smart enough to read between the lines. And so sometimes I find that I'm teaching people how to unlearn, not learn something new. And that is just as hard, to your point, Karl. Like, that's still scary. That's hard for people who are in their, 40s, 50s, 60s, working or whatever. I still got 20 plus years of work ahead of me easily, right? Before I'm like 65, somewhere in that range. It's challenging. You feel like maybe the younger generations all have it figured out, are going to pass you by. And this event obviously goes all back, not to get into it, but just into the human element of AI adoption, efficiency, and productivity. There are humans involved. And yes, we will get to a point where we have agents that are able to do things in Asana and other tools that act outside of our control on sort of their own sort of, triggers and processes that are bigger and better than automations that enhance and supplement what us as humans are doing and make us better at doing human things. allow us to do better human things. I truly believe that's going to be a huge thing for businesses. But so much of this discussion is really about humans being humans and worried about families and worried about what adoption truly means and what does it mean when I have productivity, and what if I leave? What if somebody else comes in with better knowledge than me and is a whiz at using this ChatGPT thing? How does that affect me? Does that make me look worse? I mean, it's just such a big part of this whole discussion. And I think that's why adoption is going to not necessarily take longer. It's just that you have your early adopters, and then you're going to have people who are going to naturally wait to see how it sort of all plays out before they get involved. I know we're sort of like low on time. Hold on a second here. Yeah, go ahead, Beth, because Beth, you were saying you had another point, and then I just wanted to share one quick thing from 2018.
Cool. And I just, at that point, wanted to point out that there are different brain states, and it kind of goes on to what you're saying, Brian. The brain state that says, yes, we want to buy this, make that decision, is different than the brain state that is taking in the information in order to learn, right? Like, they're very, very different processes for the people that you're working with. And something can make really great sense to a buyer and a supervisor that says, wow, this is going to be amazing. Look at all of this. But again, like, you have to approach teaching and learning and experimentation in a very different way. And one of the ways that is the best way is to give your employees an opportunity to play and find their own efficiencies, right? Like, it is okay. We're carving out 5 hours a week for play. Like, figure it out. Do weird shit. Allow that kind of thing. And that is actually where people start to like, oh no, I know how that relates to efficiency. I can now start to do something in my own life, my own job that benefits me.
Listen, and a lot of businesses don't connect the dots, right, Beth? Because that's not particularly easy to show on an earnings report. Play, because play may turn into productivity, and play may just help you figure out what not to do in the future.
Yeah.
So when you have investors, when you have boards, when you have things, and you say, well, we've implemented 5 hours of play, and we truly believe by allowing people just to naturally go in and use these tools and learn where its boundaries are, where they can push and where it's fun for them and stuff like that. We know this is going to take our business to the next level. And people are going to say, prove it. Show that to me on a graph,
Right.
And it's tough. It's a tough thing.
And I'm using the training word. What I really mean is research and development. Right.
R&D, right? Hey, I only want to share this one last thing really quick, just because I think it's interesting I'm going to go to the top of the article and I'll come back to this quote. But this is from the Harvard Business Journal. And what I wanted to do as part of this conversation today is just simply go back in time a little bit and say, and not even far, 2018. In fact, this is written on March 21st of 2018. Because it's easy to say, oh, what has AI done? What is AI doing for us? Is it really helping us with efficiencies and productivity? Well, the answer is yes, it is. Because all you have to do is look back at some older blogs that are readily available on the internet talking about AI. Now, in 2018, they're definitely talking more about machine learning. They're not talking about ChatGPT. It was not available, at least publicly, right? I'm sure GPT-1 was around at that time or something like that. But let's assume people weren't using it. And even then, and this is the gentleman here for Harvard Business School that was talking about this, but I love this quote. If someone's past experience has been entirely in the world of older technology and suddenly a machine learning tool is thrust upon them, they will be less productive. And I think there's a lot to take out of this. We don't have time to unpack this whole quote, but I really love this from this 2018 article. And by the way, it's a great one to talk about what's going on, how machine learning is being helpful. But even in 2018, what they're saying is, hey, you probably have to have some computer science folks in your organization that can make sense of this. Well, now it's 2020, almost 2025, and you don't necessarily have to have experts anymore. You don't have to have a computer science degree person who can make sense of the machine learning just to see if there's any productivity gains out of it. Now we're democratizing and de-siloing access to these AI tools through things like ChatGPT and language models and natural language processing. And this is making it so now the non-expert computer science expert, the non-machine learning expert can still figure out how AI impacts their job and how they're able to get more efficiencies and gains. So to me, when I read this 2018 article, I go, wow, what a distance we've come in just 7 years. And to think that somehow this was a one-off 7-year period, the reality is I think we'll go even farther in the next 7 years. So what would that bring us up to? 2032, if we're having a conversation on this show for episode 2431, whatever that is in 2032, when we're all independently wealthy from this show and all the amazing stuff it's done. We'll probably be talking about, hey, but in 2024, this is what we were basing it on. And now where are we today? And that gets me really, really excited. So, okay. Any other last thoughts before we wrap it up? Because we were definitely on time. Out of time, I should say. Okay, tomorrow we have, as I look at the clock, tomorrow we have the news as we always do. On Thursday, we're talking about AI in crime solving. So if you want to come back and learn about, how AI is impacting crime and crime solving, if you love CSI and these types of shows, let's talk about AI and how it's impacting that area. And then Friday, we have what we call our recap show. We do it every other Friday. It gives us an opportunity to slow down, pause, go back and look at the last 9 episodes. This one, our conversation yesterday about OpenAI, which was very, very well received so far. So we'll certainly talk more about that and anything else that's come up over the last 9 shows that we've done. So that'll be Friday's show. So lots more coming up this week. Come back and hang out with us. Thank you as always to everybody in the comments. Again, such amazing conversations going on there. If you ever want to hang out with us live, it's every weekday. You can do that on YouTube is where most people are hanging out these days. That's where the cool kids are. But you can go over to YouTube at 10 a.m. live Eastern weekdays and be part of the conversation live with us. And a lot of times we bring those conversations right into the show. So you can play along with us, as they say. That's it, guys. Have a great day. And we will see you again tomorrow for all the news. Until then, bye. Well, bye when I get the clip. Bye now.